then after that, I saw an email somewhere about mentioning June meetings.
Yes, you did.
I thought I did.
We'll be right about that.
That's right.
That's not a big deal, it's just needs to know when.
Well,
How are you?
basically what happened. Good. This is paint. They did
Painting rocks in Miss Clayton's class,
Okay.
and I had to
One
get
meeting.
brushes. I was able to, and
found paint, but I had to get paintbrushes.
and then it turned out that Jamie looks like he's restructuring the meeting that we were supposed to make the
He wants it
report
September.
carousel.
Yeah, so-
And so I said, well, why don't we just get the work done by mid-June, and then we'll report before the board retreat, which makes more sense to be fresh in the
Don't bring him anywhere.
Amy's not here.
On every opposite Thursday, I have to go to like an AA class for those.
Oh my God. You need some support?
Yeah, I'm looking to support you.
I should make sure you have my number and you can text me whenever you get a crazy.
It's a wasabi peanut with support class. It's a snack attack.
All right. Why don't we?
Pat is running a few minutes late. Patrick is.
Who is it? Patrick is?
Patrick.
All right.
I told him I would start the meeting
Good, I'm
without
watching.
him.
I have to have a hip replacement.
Well, I
I'm going to grab that chair, though. Well, maybe we should just call it to order.
Yeah, we can do that.
And, oh, thanks, Lindy. My red-eye brain has left. You think?
How was the keys?
They were great.
Yeah.
Yeah, the weather was perfect.
Yeah.
It's 180-degree difference from what it was here that week.
Yeah.
All right, Doug, make it happen.
All right.
I did.
We're going to call to order. Patrick's on his way. I don't know about some of our other attendees, but I think we're good to go.
Do you have an agenda handy?
I do. Let me just, do you want to print? I'll go grab them. Well, there's no printer installed
I on?
in this right now because,
Am I on? Okay.
Pretty brief agenda this week.
yeah.
So, anybody peek at the data?
I didn't look at the
I
data.
did not.
All right.
I wanted to be surprised to see.
Well, I was out west. It was pretty calm out there.
This way you can get initial reactions.
True.
Right.
Where did this go?
How's your trip?
It was great. It was great. I was just saying the weather was perfect.
There it is.
Very
We're
pleasant.
just all jealous, Keith.
Yeah.
We don't want-
You were like blowing the complete whole.
Well, actually, that's why I wanted to know when the June meetings are, because I'm going to be in Vegas.
Oh, right, you're going to the Sphere, right?
Okay. So we've got minutes to approve, but
In Chesney.
do we have enough people? This is so
Approve the
silly.
minutes.
Yeah. I don't think so. We'll come back to it. Hey,
Who's Katie?
Katie.
Congrats.
Yeah, there were minutes where it came out in the email, so if people don't have copies, then I had
local thing.
Lindy making a bunch of copies, other copies, so let's not worry about that. That's
Okay.
not my biggest thing. So tonight's work is, we're scheduled to go to 7. I think, it kind of depends, some of the things that we're going to work on tonight, it's hard to know whether it's going to take 10 minutes or it's going to take 30 or 40. We will be done by 7, but we also might be out of here a little earlier than that. So we're going to finalize the faculty and staff survey. That has to be done. No one can go home until that's done, and we'll do that first. We're very close. Lindy and Mary and I took your suggestions and the notes that we took from the last meeting and did some adjusting to it. So we're looking for whether or not that meets your approval and whether we've missed anything. The next one is, did I write that right? Discuss strategies for community, no, that was supposed, is this the right? Today is the 15th. Okay, we're supposed to discuss strategies for community survey participation. We did get another 20 participants based on what you did. So whether or not you want to do any more with that. I also wanted to talk about the family continuing strategies because we got
25, 26. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but Lindy had already taken that initiative and put it out a couple of different ways just today.
Right.
So that's kind of been done. And I think the family stuff, unless you can think of other ways, are sort of in Lindy's purview in terms of coming from the school. And then we'll begin review of the data of the family survey. And I have a protocol for that and how we'll do that. And you'll get a sense of how we're going to do that across all 3 surveys. I've got the community one is all done up as well. So we'll just see how we do time-wise. But there's a protocol for that. Questions?
I have a question about the email you sent about the timeline for Jamie.
Oh, and that's not on there, but yes. Do you want to talk about that first, or you want to wait till Pat?
Doesn't matter. We can talk about it whenever.
No, it's
that was
on
my
there.
only question.
It needs to be done. So I put it in the email that I'm basically feeling in terms of work time that I'm one meeting short. I mean, we can jam it, but you're gonna feel like that when you're done. We were scheduled to make the presentation on that first Tuesday in June. I think that's when the regular board meeting is. But I think it was Lindy, said to me that she thought that Jamie was trying to make that a carousel meeting, which means that all the boards come to the same place. And it's kind of a whole different structure. And I thought, well, that's not a great, way to put this stuff forward in that kind of meeting. That's just not the purpose. So I reached out to him and suggested that we not present on the 3rd, or whatever the date was, and that we meet maybe one more time in June. We can discuss that tonight when the rest of the group is here. And then I'll write the report, put that out, we'll figure that out, and then ultimately we will make the report to the board right before their fall retreat, which seems like that makes, in terms of timing, to bring something that you want folks to take action on, to report that in June, end of the school year. They don't meet in July, and August is last minute hires. It's like, wow, what are all the decisions the board has to make for school to start on time? So they're pretty, based on my own experience, pretty distracted. So to do it in September, right before their fall retreat, seems to me like that makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know anything about that timing, so we defer to you. But is there any commitment beyond that last meeting that we've discussed from this task force towards that?
Question.
Past the June meeting? No.
Okay.
I mean, I might be in touch with you depending on where I am with the report itself,
Okay.
but in terms of time or meeting?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I've done the summer thing. People are awesome, but everybody's kind of, you get, even if people are really committed, people are vacationing at different times, and it just, I said to Jamie, you end up doing twice, you have to do everything twice. So, and I've just been on the school schedule for like 65 years, and my real brain just kind of turns off in the summer. So that's the latest on that. So I'm hoping that adding a meeting in June is not good. We have to see, we get into trouble sometimes in June because of activities that are going on, and so we'll take a close look at those dates and get them penciled in. Mary, you had a question?
Will we have a September meeting prior to the presentation?
I would think so. I would think so, because that would be the best time to, and maybe it's, we'll figure that out. Because that might be the best time to really go over the report.
So just for planning purposes,
Yeah.
they usually meet like the first
Just to
Monday of the month, which of course is Labor Day. They will probably not meet on Labor Day. They don't meet on holidays, which I appreciate. So it would probably be the 8th of, wow, Labor Day's early. You can tell I haven't looked that far in advance.
Is the retreat on a regular date? Or is it just sometimes in September?
Sometimes it's usually like the last Saturday, we have to avoid the Tunbridge Fair, and we have to avoid the Harvest Festival, so it's usually the last Saturday in September, the first Saturday in
Okay.
October, just
So we have a
to,
little bit of, because that planning meeting doesn't have to be,
right. But I'm guessing their September board meeting will be September 8th.
And you don't feel that we can wrap this up between tonight and the last meeting of this month? That it's really going to be necessary to have another meeting in June?
yeah. What's the question? We need another meeting in June.
And that's my question.
Yes.
What do you feel we're going to be discussing at that additional meeting?
Well, I feel like with what we have left, we've got 3 surveys. And so the process, oops,
It's
I am
like, just
connected
be
to
careful.
myself. The process is really, well, you want to pull that up, the process that we're going to use
Yes.
is basically, and we can talk about whether we do this in small groups or large groups, but looking at what catches your eye, what the data tells us and what it doesn't tell us, what are our successes, what are our challenges, and what recommendations might we have for improvement. So those questions sort of need to be answered for each of the 3. But then there's those are the individuals surveys, but then there's the questions and impressions that you will come to as a result of looking at the data that have implications across all 3 stakeholders. So it's pulling all of that stuff together in terms of how, when we get down to the nitty-gritty, they've asked us for strategies. They've asked us to give them some ideas about not just what people are thinking, but to give them some ideas about how to do it. So it's really putting that all together. And some of it is time. Some of the things I simply can't say, is it going to take you 10 minutes or 30 minutes, because someone might get stuck on something.
Based on the overall response to the surveys that have gone out, do you feel there's going to be a large amount of data? Or do you feel,
No.
okay, so
No.
it will be easier to, compile the data and come up with an opinion on the data that is furnished? It's not going to be like 400 people responding.
No. And the reality is that, I'm one that can say, we put that meeting in, but I'm not sure that we need it. This is just that.
No, I was just questioning,
Because it would not be okay to me if we had a last meeting and we still had people going, yeah, but what about this? What about this? No, you can't. You've put in way too much work to.
No, I
lead
agree.
that.
I'm just,
But, yeah,
I just
it's a
don't
fair
see
question. It's not going to be difficult.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's pretty, what I've looked at just in terms of the family is pretty interesting. But let's do the faculty staff first.
Yeah.
So we can get that one right in the so you can hit the send button on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Do you need to do anything?
So let's just say the short, we did change the top. Short, I won't read it to you.
Is that first question new? I don't remember that. They actually
just
define their
expanded-
role. Okay.
Like all the roles. To make sure no one was like, I'm not on here.
Yeah,
It's
no, I think it's
truly
great.
I have a
Truly
question.
the approach.
Yeah.
It also, sometimes when you have different answers or to be able to try to figure out where the majority of the answers are coming from.
My question is, as I read this first question, you're going to basically know who is writing.
So I will say, I don't,
Anonymity kind of
Yeah.
loses.
Yeah.
I mean, when I read that
was-
custodian, nutrition, I mean, come on. I mean, this is not like if there were 200 teachers and, staff
Yeah.
members, I get that question, but
We could just do licensed staff.
we could do faculty and
Life-
support staff.
Yeah, licensed staff, support staff. which
yeah, only
would include
because
nutrition and
as you
custodian.
narrow it down,
We could-
it becomes easier and
It's the
easier.
license is what does it. Administrators have licenses, so. An admin, don't you?
I do
I
have
think
a
so,
license.
anyway.
I do.
And an admin assistant would be a support.
I'll have to renew for a lot of
Yes,
years
that's why we
after
bring
last
it
year.
back. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
There'll be enough of that in the comments.
Yes.
Even in the family.
As you parse through that, I'm sure it'll be easy. But this just makes it too easy. I don't want to make your job that easy.
We can do that.
We had in the,
That was a concern.
you want to do that now, or you just take a good note that you're going to do it? Or I'm going to take a good note, you're going to do it.
It was more to not leave anybody out. Because someone would be like, I don't fit into any of these.
Well, that's why if you make the two categories broad enough,
Yep, perfect. It's a valid point. I appreciate it. I just was like, we were talking about it, and I was like, we gotta put so-and-so in here, and so-and-so, because they'll be
yeah,
like, I'm not here. I
I'm
can't
going the
fill it."
opposite way.
I can't fill it out because I'm not on the first choice. I'm not even on the list.
Okay, next one.
Yeah. How many years?
These we played with the number of years ourselves.
I'm just going to tilt this, trying to do a little reflection.
No, I can't see it.
Somebody stop me if you see something.
So, back it up for a minute. Did we only have 5 on the good job of
This one?
unified school community?
Yeah.
Was it 5 in the family or was it 10?
I think we edited it down. Yeah, we took it down.
Took it down.
It looks like it's 10 in the family.
Really?
I think we talked about it reducing it, but maybe it just didn't end up reduced.
This makes it easier to compare if it's not.
Should we make it the same then?
You think it's 10?
It is on the family one, yeah.
On the-
Oh, I thought you, yeah.
I think we talked about reducing it. I'm just not sure that it ever.
Just leave it.
Leave it at 5 or leave it at 10?
Same, no, it's the same.
Keep it
Yeah,
at the
that's the
same?
same.
Okay.
I am very curious about the answer to that one because I, as a administrator, was always just stunned at the lack of connection on the part of professional staff with what was going on in the state. But I'm hoping
We've probably spent more
not
time on it
true with
lately.
your district. True with mine.
Yeah. Try to. What I can understand of it.
We added the idea, I think, for the community conversations, just to get people thinking about it.
Is there an extra space after RSUD board consider? Or it just looks that way?
Good catch.
Where did never mind,
Where did what?
nothing.
This was the one we got stuck on.
Oh, the underlying one was, is that one that we added? Or
I
was it?
think it just came off of a pared down version of what we asked in the community and family one.
Is that a question that's okay with people, or you think it's redundant, or?
Which is, are we talking about, what is your primary challenge in improving student learning?
No,
Sorry,
we
no,
shared
this
it.
next
Additional
one.
question. It's just underlined because we wanted to make sure it was okay.
Don't
I know that you
really,
would say any additional because they haven't asked any questions yet.
right.
So just please share any
Well, go
questions
back-
you've had.
Go back 2. I'm just curious.
2? This one?
No. I guess maybe another one?
Tell me.
I guess, what did the key potential? No.
Was there another one?
Yeah, okay, I'm fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
strengthen, improve, and magic wand. How are we feeling?
So is the question, do we need that, or how do we modify that?
The underlined one?
Yeah.
That's, do we need that? And if we need it, then is it okay the way it is, or do we need to modify it?
Well, aren't those two questions, that one and the one right below it, kind of overlap to
Yeah.
a great degree? So I'm not sure what information you're looking for the staff to provide that's different when I look at those two questions.
Ms. Braun had a stronger opinion on these three questions. I remember that
Yeah.
The
distinctly.
magic wand.
No, the three in the middle.
From the Boulder House one.
I mean, the additional questions would give folks an opportunity to ask, you know, what are people, I don't know, we have answers to these, but you know,
Right.
what are people thinking in terms of how to respond to the state as opposed to current successes?
So because they may ask, what's the board thinking right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there
So
decisions
maybe
already
it's
being made?
regarding the future? So please share any additional questions you might have regarding the future of Rochester-Stockbridge Unified
I
District.
think that's
That
better.
sounds-
Staff,
that
think about
sounds
this,
good.
this is staff.
But I think that should go under those next two,
Yeah.
right before the magic wand.
Yeah,
Right before Magic Wand. Okay. Let's see if I can really.
I
Magic
agree. The
Wand this.
placement's off.
Well, yeah, but that, if you put that, it's gonna be, is the school closing? Is the
Yeah, am I
school
gonna lose my
closing?
job?
Is the school closing?
I mean,
Will I lose my job?
I've been answering that question, I think, since March.
Yeah.
Okay.
From everyone. From everyone.
Right, but, you know, a lot of people just nervous, right? Like,
People are
do I have a
nervous
job
all over
next
the
year?
state,
That's where
yeah.
it started, and then, especially when you're a new teacher, it's like, you don't know.
So then how does that impact the magic wand question? Because you ask, what ideas do you have to strengthen and improve our unified district? If you had a magic wand and could change one thing, you know, you're just looking for one item, and you're trying to narrow it down.
Could they be the
But the
same
magic
question?
wand, but the magic wand answer, to me, would have to come from what do you feel would strengthen the district?
I think the point of that question, from my perspective, is where do you think one should start, or what do you think is the highest priority?
But doesn't that, what do you think you have to do to strengthen and improve our unified district?
Are you wondering
I think
about the
it's-
placement of it or the?
I'm just trying to figure out, it's like, to me, that question then you have to answer that question by taking one of your ideas to strengthen and improve.
I would hope so.
And
I'm not sure
if you
that
don't,
everybody-
then one of those questions is really,
Yeah.
you negate the answer to that question.
Well, some people will write a novel for strengthen and improve.
Right, I know that.
Right.
I think as a teacher,
Yeah.
I would have looked at strengthen and improve in a very pragmatic way, where the magic wand, I'd be like, we need a van and get the kids out and travel and spend a year traveling with our sixth graders all over
Magic
the
school.
United States.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That, to
Yeah.
me, that's just a question that is a throwaway question, just for that answer
Oh,
alone.
but isn't that a great, like, the vision? I
Vision.
think that's, as a teacher, I love
I'm
that.
sure you
Somebody
would.
cares about my, like, most out-of-the-box idea.
I'm sure you would. How does that,
Okay, where
what insight does that give to the school board?
Right.
It's not like you have to have an answer. Yeah.
Well, I think we put required on everything, but the directions, folks seem fine, and I would give this direction in our staff meeting. Just putting on that, like, if you don't have something here, don't feel like you have to force yourself to come up with
I
it.
think it would be interesting to see what people would come up with. Because that idea of taking kids on the road, I'm not
Donna's
opposed to
already-
that.
I was like, Donna's over here, she's gonna have a plan for
Just
Monday.
writing it down.
So have we forgotten anything, or is this what we want to do for staff? We picked it apart a lot last time. We were really close, so this was just, and we need to fix that question so it's not underlined anymore. Did you do
I
that?
think I took it off, it's right there. Is it now italicized now? There we go. I'm like, sure something.
We good?
I feel like we are. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Excellent, done.
So,
And you're going to put it out on Tuesday, right?
start there.
All right. Perfect. So back to community survey participation and also staff. So I'm not sure exactly what we did to get more community participation. We got another 20. I don't know if you want to try one more time. What, did it go out on Front Porch Forum? What
Front Porch
happened?
Forum, some QR codes went up different places for Green Up Day.
How many do we have total?
81.
I can fill out a couple more if you like.
Or do you want to just take what you have? I mean, in some respects, you're not going to look at it for another 2 weeks, so why not?
Take what we
Why
have.
not encourage more people to?
What's that?
It's not-
What's the percentage of the total population if there's 80 responses? What's the total population
Small.
between?
You don't want to,
Yeah,
700.
I mean, I know Stockbridge is like 800, right? So that, but it's not just Stockbridge, that's Stockbridge,
Just
Rochester.
Rochester, yeah.
Is this Pittsfield? No, just Stockbridge, Rochester.
just Stockbridge, Rochester. I actually, it's
2,000
small.
people?
Yeah.
2,000 people?
you're going to be somewhere around 5%. It's like
Yeah.
1,600 or 1,700
I mean, I think the
voters.
only other thing we could do is put the QR code in the Herald. We didn't make the cut in time to do,
Oh, really? So Tuesday?
yeah.
For surveys, how much of a response should there be? Like, what
Yeah.
percentage should there be?
Just
that
as
be-
much as we can get. I mean, I think traditionally, the response on these kinds of things is lower than what anyone would ever want.
Right.
So you have to be careful about what kinds of conclusions you draw. Or just to add the caveat that based on, 24% of the town's population, this is where we think people are leaning.
Did we ask Jill?
She sent it out via the message thing. Is that what you mean by ask Jill? Sorry,
Yeah, or just like, I don't know. Yeah,
I did get an
guess so.
email from Jill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean,
if
we
you-
looked through that again, too.
the data says actually that the primary, we're talking community. So what does the community survey say about how they prefer to get information?
The town
Because the
was
faculty
the-
says,
It was town and Front Porch Forum.
or the family says
and-
email.
Right. Emails and posts from the town office and Front Porch Forum were like one apart. And then the next was Facebook. That's a scary thought.
Well, then that's what I would suggest you do, is you do another email blast through
Okay.
the town clerk or however you do that.
Okay.
And if somebody can volunteer to put it on Front Porch Forum, but it's more than one front, is it a community Front Porch Forum? or
It's
is it-
two separate ones,
So people who
just
could
not hard.
volunteer to do that, I would suggest that way is what you do.
And what's the end date for that?
Well, it'll be 2 weeks from our next meeting.
The 29th.
From Facebook, is it Stockbridge Connections that it's coming from?
They said
28.
Facebook.
We meet on the
We didn't
29th.
specify.
Where'd we put it on Facebook? It doesn't say like,
I don't think we,
so if we can come up with like a catchy one-liner to get people's attention and stick it on the Stockbridge connection with the link right there, then I feel like we could probably capture.
Higher taxes, poor education. Make sure you respond.
What do you think?
Otherwise, well, no.
sure,
That'll get people's attention.
right, like a one-liner.
So we're missing a
But
lot of
not
people tonight. We're missing Robert.
I'm
we're
just saying, I'm just saying a tagline that makes people say, oh, I want my opinion to be heard.
Right, I
because
want to
it is
take
important.
the 5 to 10 minutes.
Otherwise it's just like a
Yeah.
survey,
Yeah.
But if it affects your children or it affects something that's meaningful to you,
Yeah.
meaning, property taxes or whatever.
Do you care about our kids?
I do.
Do you have 5 minutes? Look at this survey.
Okay, so we're good with this?
Yeah, we'll come
Yeah,
up
this
with
is
a
good.
catchy
I have a
one.
quick question.
If we
We've
then we
got,
can just stick it up there, I feel like.
Yeah.
3 people out tonight, I think. Robert, Amy, and Megan, is that right?
Patrick's on his way.
And I know you said that, so I put him here,
Yeah.
even though he's not.
Yes, that is right.
And there was some discussion off and on about Rochester's representation. Is Rochester represented here?
Not tonight,
Okay.
unless you, well, me, I guess, 'cause I'm both. I get to wear the multi-hat.
I mean,
You wear
I'll be
multi-hat,
honest
no?
and say
You're just here?
that when that came up, and I talked to Jamie about it, and just, looking at what we were, because we're not making any decisions, we're making recommendations. And frankly, your charge as a unified school district
Right.
is everybody's kids are everybody's kids. It ought not to be,
One or the other.
it ought not, and it is not, except in a couple of cases, not clear to me who's from where.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be. So I just think this is interesting because we made a move to get that fixed, and now that
Right.
person is also absent. I don't know. So I'm guilt-free, and you should be guilt-free
I'm
too.
guessing it's because the White River Valley players have something tonight and tomorrow.
Going.
And that person does all the lighting.
Okay. Well,
Do we see
yeah.
results? Like, can we see results like in lack of volume from Rochester? Like, is that?
I think it's not, it might be
It's
interesting to
anecdotal at
you
the moment,
guys.
but-
Yeah, you do see the breakdown of like what percentage came from what community.
Well, the last time you had a high percentage of
From Stockbridge,
Yeah.
I remember that,
and
yeah.
a low percentage from Rochester, even though Rochester has a larger population.
Yeah.
All right, well,
Interesting.
let's get going on this. So here's my question. Because you're such a small group, but you're still 6 or 7, which is rough to do the initial part. Can you work here in, like, if Mary, do you need to go to the other table, so you're too distracting to each other to talk?
Yeah,
Yes,
this is fine.
Like the 3 of you and the 3 of you could talk. Okay.
Okay.
Because what I'd like to do is to add, and I'll go through this with you, but add large group discussions to each of these. They'll be short, 5 minutes, just to share what you found and what jumped out. So the recorder part, it's good to have one, just to catch these ideas. We've got copies of don't give it now. 40.
Oh, yeah.
Finally,
Wait
44 years
until
of
the directions are
education.
done.
Don't hand it out. So we have that for you. I've got highlighters, I've got pencil. So you'll have your own copy. I need you to either hang on to it and make sure it comes back next time, because we might be referring to it, or you need to turn it in and then we'll keep it for you, one or t'other. But you will be publicly shamed if you lose it, just to be clear. Anyway, so individual notes, 5 minutes, you gotta go. Look at that, we have a group. Welcome.
You're fine.
So we'll have individual, and chance for you to look at it by yourself. 5 minutes doesn't seem like a lot of time, but I think you'll be okay. If we have to extend it, I will extend it by like a minute. And then the small group discussion about what, just purely, and try to stay on task, what catches your attention in the data. Just facts, no inferences.
Okay.
And then we'll go step by step by step, we'll go through that. So you're just looking at what is popping out at you. Might be surprises, it might be, but just stuff that you can, you have evidence for. Oh, I put them over there already. Okay, so here's the data.
Just copy the document in
Okay.
group 1 and group 2.
It's this one.
Okay.
We're gonna do it now.
Okay.
Oh, but my connection was interrupted.
Put the QR code on little things and put it like at the Rochester Cafe and like at Sandy's and like places there's little tables. And then while they're waiting, they
One
can
for
just like
Patrick.
fill it out.
Put them over
Ask
here.
them.
Cora would do that. Yeah.
You can go ahead and get a head start before I hit the there's highlighters here if people want them.
Thank you. Thank you.
You need something to write with, Katie?
Yeah.
I've got it. I got plenty.
Okay, thank you.
Does Wi-Fi go in and out? Or is it
Are you on
just-
the hotspot or are you on the guest one?
Oh, I'm on the guest. Okay.
Let me see. No?
Should I go on your phone?
No, the guest should be, that's why I asked. If you're on the hotspot, it'll like dip in and out, but.
Sorry, was it less successful and more successful?
Yes,
Less, okay, thank you.
or gee, I hope so, but I'm pretty sure I wrote G.
Family.
So yeah, this is just what's popping out. Hey, how are you? With your daddy?
No. I'm good. Take my kids, please. That's the way I read that in my head.
Just going through this right now quickly to see what jumps out at you. Just once. Good. Just a quick aside, the question on page 15 is we asked, it's not, you can't decipher it.
Yeah.
We didn't ask it the right way, so just skip that and we'll talk about it. Adrian, you're not finished. Couple more minutes. You're done? You ready? Okay. Okay, let's move on to the next part, which would be in these small groups, which will be two groups of four, which are kind of naturally delineated here. Let's share what jumped out at you. There's a couple different ways you can do it. It's just to go around one at a time, say what it is, it gets recorded. If that's on your list, mark it off, give another idea that popped out to you until everybody's out of ideas. The question of the group is, it's a little bit more cumbersome, but would you rather do this as a group of 8 rather than as a group of 4 and then come back to 8? You want to do it as a group of 8?
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. So, who's recording? Mary, are you somebody?
Well,
And
I
would
need
rec-
to plug in my computer.
Okay, well, I can actually record too. I would record right on this. So I'm going to say large. Okay, we're going around the room. So the rules are, it's what jumped out at you, things that popped, any patterns you saw, anything that surprised. You get to say one thing.
Okay.
If the one thing you wanted to say has already been said, you may not say it again, or you will lose your privileges to speak. Add another one. If you don't, just say you're out or pass until we have everybody's ideas up with no repeats. And there's no discussion, it's just what it is. And then we'll stop and discuss it. But for right now, we're just getting it up there. So, Katie.
That the 100% of the responses said that they would be open to the RSUD board exploring changing both school configurations if it expands educational and social opportunities for our students.
You're allowed to speak, so.
I was surprised at how many people were in favor of having certain grade levels at one campus and other grade levels at the other. I expected more resistance to that.
I'm going to say upper and lower school just because I can type that really fast and I know what that is.
Building on Robert's idea, I was surprised by, well, I guess not too surprised, that how many people wanted the grades not together, to splitting
Is that like
grades.
multi-age?
Yeah.
Lindy?
The references, like teacher turnover concerns.
Having a negative effect? Well, really, that's an inference, is that?
Teacher
There we go.
turnover, yeah.
Lindy, or Mary?
92% of respondents feel as though the schools do a good job communicating with the school community about upcoming events.
Patrick?
Share something.
We'll forgive you if you say something that somebody's already said.
Yeah, it looked like there was a lot of interest in reconfiguration.
Yeah, okay. Mary?
Me again?
Oh, you already said it, I'm sorry. Keith?
I was the most surprised about, when I looked at the long answers, the number of people that were willing to consider consolidation. I thought there were quite a few, and since this is strictly a family survey, that's what made it most surprising.
Yeah, I counted 18 out of 25 responses.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. Yeah,
Minor repeats.
okay. Katie?
I was surprised that most people said email is the best form of communication. I was surprised, but I was like, so impressed.
Robert?
I don't have any new comments.
Okay. Donna?
How many, this to talk about retirees or other people sharing their expertise?
The number of people interested?
Yeah.
Just as an aside, Lindy, have you heard it from anybody?
Have I what?
about wanting to share their expertise?
Well, some of the people on here have already been in the past,
Yeah, I got that.
which is
Okay.
great. And then there's one person that had reached out from the community. So.
Anything else?
The percentage of people who didn't know about the school budget. 32% didn't know.
Mary?
Only 60% of respondents are interested in receiving communication on test scores.
What was the percentage?
60%.
Keith?
I looked at two questions and kind of compare the two. The first question, it says, does the school do a good job communicating community and upcoming events? And 92% of the responses was positive. But then you look at a question further down and it says, school campuses are community spaces. Are you aware that you can access both campuses as a community rental? And there, only 56% said yes. So it kind of contradicts about how strong the communication is.
Yep.
I think there just needs to be more awareness of the fact that they can use this space.
Right, but if they communicate, at 92% feel that they communicate positively, why does that same group of people only say that only 50% of us knew about this?
Well, I mean, I think that the communication can only be as good as, you know, and only 25 people took this.
We're not talking. Did you have something that you wanted to add that was not mentioned?
I think the positive response to capital investment.
Doug? Oh, you were out before? Still out?
I did, but I think the school of choice that was listed for the Granville Hancock students, there was a few comments to that.
And having the same choice as they have?
No, it'd be having to allow them school of choice.
Oh, okay. Okay. Done?
I thought it was pretty interesting that the least well-known school-wide initiatives were direct instruction reading and literacy and math achievements. I thought it was interesting that the academic information was the lesser known of everything as a school-wide initiative.
No new comments?
I have a new comment, but on there, I think that's not quite worded right. It's not interest in school choice for Hancock and Granville, because they already have?
Right.
So it's more interest in school choice for Rochester, like Hancock and Granville have.
Oh, okay, that's what I was asking. Okay.
Yes, right.
Another one. Sorry.
Rochester.
And I do have a new comment, and it's the mention of language multiple times, the idea of studying a language.
Anybody else? There we go. Anything else?
Perfect.
You don't have to-
That was interesting that people were in support of further capital investments to upkeep the facilities, but then seemed to have pushback on spending another, like, it just seemed like it was interesting that that facility investment was top, like everyone said yes, mostly, 88% said yes. To further capital investments for the facilities.
That they were more interested in that
Yeah.
than spending money on.
That's an open question anyway, because
Just the fact that
That-
that there seemed to be concern about the budget overall, but that overwhelmingly had support for capital
but there's no qualified there.
investment.
At what cost?
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
Still,
So
yeah,
that's just
it
a-
kind of
yeah.
just, yeah.
Are we good with this list?
I appreciate the recognition of Jamie's efforts that came up with tonight.
And Lindy's.
And Lindy, yeah.
Did that surprise you?
Yeah, I think it's really wonderful when administration gets recognized for what they do.
Oh, don't read some of the other comments then. I'm not good at, like, I read the negative.
Well, that's, I'm just trying to get this down to what
There was a change in management.
a pattern does. Is it a surprise? Does it pop out? I guess it popped out. Patrick, did you have anything else?
So,
I did find it interesting, I know it's only 5 people difference, the number of parents that were like, nope, I'm good, I don't need to volunteer.
Yeah.
I just want to drop my kids at school. Like, that was me reading between the line, that's not a box, but it was like, no, I'm good.
Sure.
I guess my only question would be, why did we only get 25 spots?
Yeah.
And how many families between the two schools?
How many?
Oh, hang on, I do know, let me,
That's where I was-
it's right around 90, I
It's
think.
only, communication's only as good as the person receiving it.
Okay, so we're going to open this up in a minute. I had a couple of, so Lindy, how many families? Is it reasonable to think that only one person in the family?
So there's, between both campuses, there are 85 households.
85
Households is the way I
85
would word
households,
that.
okay.
So you got a 30% response.
Say that again.
But that could be potentially 160 parents,
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
and we only got 25
Well, you-
Per family or per parent?
parents. I mean, yeah.
It's a family survey, but it's sent to everyone.
That's why I said 85
No, I know that, but that
households.
means if you have 2 parents in a household, do both respond?
Yeah, of course, because they can have different
Yeah,
opinions.
same for you
They
guys, though. Same for
could.
community.
They could.
Yeah.
They didn't, but they could.
Yeah.
In my house, it would be more like, you doing it or me? Or mine, you know?
I'm curious,
So there are some like
were there
that,
families
so-
where both parents did, or did a lot
Well,
of
because we
families-
didn't
don't know.
collect it, so like the only way to collect it on Google is like, then you make it a sign-in. When you, right, Mary, am I saying that
Yeah,
right?
unless we had a question.
Right,
It's not anonymous anymore.
yeah, so,
Okay, well, yeah, and so before you came, Lindy has already put it out 2 more times.
you've got a robo
Oh,
email
I know.
So that hopefully.
and a
help.
newsletter.
That's right, it's only as good as,
The thing that, and I don't,
But I would
Wait.
say that this 30% is about like,
the core.
I would say it's like what we get back on permission slips the
Yeah,
first time
so I
through
mean, it
and
is a-
things like
it's a
that.
representation of
It,
it.
I
it
think
doesn't
it's
feel
fairly
that,
accurate, 30%.
yeah, it doesn't feel that off. I mean, it feels low, right? But like when I think about what goes home on a Thursday and then who we have to hunt down afterwards, like, or just who it's like, oh, that's not gonna work for, we gotta call that person or we gotta get them at drop off or pick up, like, it's probably about.
I mean, if you look at page 3, it seems like we got an accurate representation just based off of the scale difference.
yeah.
If it
Yeah,
was all
Okay.
leaning towards one scale, then I would think that it wasn't accurate.
Okay, well, I have one thing that I just noticed that, and I don't really participate in this, except that when I looked at the question, would you be open to the RSUD board exploring changing both school configurations if it expands educational and social opportunities for our students? There were a lot of comments that used the phrase consolidating. And
what I
so I'm going, well, what does that mean?
right.
Is that in 1B? I mean, we tried really hard to ask the question in the way we wanted them to focus, and they took it somewhere. And so I just think in the conversation, I think we have, I mean, there were a lot of comments. I agree with, that there were a lot of comments about people feeling pretty open to having a K-3 and a 4-6 split, because that would solve the multi-age piece. But when people talked about consolidation, that was different now. And I don't know that it was different.
I
People
think
were
one
specific if
thing
they
that
talked
I-
about closing a school.
Yeah, on that same note that I would add is a lot of those comments seem to be focused
Yeah.
on 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. Like
Yeah,
looking
you know,
at
like
something
the
different. Yeah,
multi-age level.
well,
And I
just
think-
any sort of makeup of 4, 5, 6 seemed to be, there are a lot of 4, 5, 6
And I
comments.
don't think everybody necessarily that took the survey that said consolidate understands that if they consolidate, there really isn't room in one school to have single grade levels.
Right, if that's what they meant by consolidate, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
well,
they're
let's
willing
keep
to
going.
spend capital to make the schools work. So
Yeah.
you can consolidate the schools, spend the capital on one school and one campus, and make it work for all the students and be more efficient.
Okay,
I think our timing on this was slightly tricky because of all the information that was coming down and like bits and spats, like just kind of offshoots from Montpelier. Like I think people were like really nervous and kind of freaking out,
Yeah.
and it's still not really clear what's happening. So people were like, if it's consolidation or we get on a bus for 75 minutes, let's do consolidate. You know, I think that is definitely. So I think the timing to be. Yeah, I think the timing is weird, and I think consolidation is a term being thrown around in the bigger picture for everybody. So that's kind of why that language I think is surfacing more.
yeah. So let's go back to these and just go to the second part of the
Yeah.
protocol, which is to kind of go back and look at that and look at your own notes, but again, spend some time by yourself. It'll be a much shorter time. But what does the data tell us and what does it not tell us? So now it's your chance to start to infer. Like, for example, when you were talking about they were willing to spend money on capital improvements. One might, because they were not completely against spending money to improve resources, that one might infer that they are willing to spend money on for specific things. They're not, the pocketbooks are not closed. One might infer that. So to go back and think about what, from the information that you got and what you heard from other people just now, what might you be able to infer from that in terms of moving forward? It has to be supported by data. You can't just, and if it's a one-liner, like how many times was the language, did that come up a lot? I thought I only saw it once.
2 or 3 times.
I saw it 2 or 3 times.
Was it 2 or 3 times? Okay.
That and guidance.
So it's kind of looking at those things too, because often one brings their own biases, and Donna, I'm not talking about you, but to the data, and if there's something in there that somebody is feeling really positive about, then that suddenly will go to the top when that in fact is not what the data is showing. So what's it telling us? What do we need more information, or is it raising more questions in any place? So just have a few moments with yourself to jot some notes down, and we'll come back. This is good enough start. that. Just close that. You got about 1 more minute. Okay. All right. So what are some of the things that we can gather or we can infer from the data that we've got? Donna, we'll start with you.
I went through all the notes to see how many people talked about consolidating into one school, and also those that mentioned 2 separate schools, and it was 7 of each. So
Okay.
half said merging into one school and half said keeping 2 campuses.
I use different words because we're trying, the first one was, what does combining or consolidating mean? So I just tried to stay away from those 2 words. But that's what you're saying? Okay. Other folks, what can we take away from this?
One of the data points was that school-sanctioned events is what people are most interested in receiving communication about. So maybe we utilize those opportunities when we have high turnout to share information that's critical, that we want to communicate to people, and you have a captive audience for. But like capitalizing on them, yeah.
I'm going to copy this down at the bottom.
Oh, can we have something then related to the survey at the concert next week?
Take the QR code
Take
from
the
the
QR
community
code.
one and the parent. Yeah.
We can drop the screen and project a QR code.
Yeah, and people can just hold up their phone,
Have a
right?
table at the,
Yeah.
We could do both. Yeah.
you know?
Oh, you want to jump to there? I always want to jump there. Back, back.
Yeah.
Okay. What else can we infer here?
Go sit down and take the survey.
I think there's a clear indication by the families who have children in the school that it opens the door for the board to have serious discussions about whether it be consolidation or changing how what students go to what campus. But it really is something that the board needs to take note of, because if you use those numbers, you got 15 or 16 people that fall into one of those two categories, and that represents, 70% of the respondents.
Yeah.
I just have a question about the board's information. So before the high school closed, was the Rochester board responsible for the high school as well, the school board?
Yes.
So is there information about money saved or money lost? I mean, I'm sure this is a
Since
hot,
then, since it
hot topic of
closed as of
conversation.
7 through 12,
Yeah.
there must.
I haven't
Must
seen
be.
any published information. I've looked to see
I mean, there must be a way to
what the
figure it
consolidation has
out.
done. I'm sure there is.
Yeah,
But I haven't seen that.
She had to go through that.
right, she might be able to point
Like
us.
savings, you're saying?
Like per pupil cost?
I mean,
Either
you
savings
would
or
also
cost.
have to consider inflation.
Yeah, that's easy to,
Yeah.
you can take 5 years and say it was 3%, 5%, 8%,
Correct.
2%. So that's,
It's doable.
yeah, very easily, yeah. But I haven't seen any numbers that reflect
Right.
what the consolidation for Rochester losing the high school, and what the consolidation with Stockbridge and Rochester, what that has produced in terms of, fiscal savings and/or expenses. So it'd be interesting to see, but not something that I've seen.
But I guess the two schools operate with two separate operating budgets, right? So the Rochester
Right.
High School must have
Yeah.
had an operating budget, right?
Well, Rochester pre-K through 12 had a.
Pre-K through 12. Okay. But that could be broken down line by line to see.
It'd be interesting to see.
I would think, but it was a land before times.
Would it be reflected in the per pupil cost, because you would have to tuition out?
Well,
the
why
high
you
school
can't use it identically, I think, like why you couldn't just say this is what we're spending now per student, and this is because they had like these ghost student, like there was a lot of things that changed. I don't remember all of it, because I wasn't really involved in it at that point in time, but.
So I have a question. Would, going to the board with this and saying, hey, we have 50% want to consider reconsolidation, which reconfiguring, maintaining both campuses, 50% are saying close one, consolidate schools, and is it looking at what that would look like with both aspects, and then creating a survey around what people are interested in, A or B?
Yes, but I need to remind you, this is one of 3 surveys. So in this particular one, which is families, it's 50/50.
Yeah.
It might be 50/50 or 80/20 with the staff for one side or the other, and community may not have. So I think it's really important, that's why we're kind of pulling these things out now, and then when we go to compare them across the board, then we have a bigger picture of what the board actually has
I have a
to
question.
challenge. Please.
Does the staff survey carry the same weight as the community survey and the family survey when it comes to discussions such as consolidation, with the possibility, whether it be by grade level or by consolidating campuses, but the prospect of them losing employment?
But I think there were less questions in that survey about.
Right, I want to make sure that there aren't, because that's really a sticking
Yeah.
point for me.
And I think that's for future discussion. I don't think it's more weight. I think in a natural way, I think that faculty and staff would be looking at what's the best educational route. I know. But like I said, when we had the question out there, everybody's going to say they're worried about their jobs. And so I just think that based on the tone, and we're talking about a survey we don't have in our hands, so I'm going to stop talking about it in about 20 seconds, to just see what the attitude was. And I think then there'll be pieces of that where we might be able to infer from tone around the comments in terms of level of frustration or fear or whatever, to kind of decide what that's going to be. And then I think families have a different, we picked 3 different stakeholders because they have 3 different lenses. And I don't think one lens gets more weight than another. But what it does tell us that if there are, for example, if the faculty and the family felt similarly about one thing and the community was not in favor of it, the board would need to decide whether or not they wanted to tackle it. Was it important enough for them to tackle it, but they would then realize that the place where they really need to do the convincing and the work would be in the community, or would it be something that they would decide that they didn't want to do?
Well, the board is like the federal board of governors. They have to weigh interest rates and the economy
Right, so
against
that's
full
what-
employment.
so they have- right.
So the board has to weigh both the needs of the students
Yep.
within the district, but also has to weigh the concerns of the community.
Right, what are the
with-
resources? Absolutely.
And they have to look at
But that's their
both.
problem, that's not our problem.
Right.
We're going to try to help them understand where they might have a better shot, or how they might have a better shot. Okay.
So can I ask a
Other
question
things, we're
that I
still
have?
trying to infer. Donna?
So my question is about, does it come, I thought we were kind of collecting information for the board so that they could make informed decisions about things and that
That's
sort of
right.
stuff. So it really isn't like, okay, so now going back to the community, which one do you choose, which way it's going to be? So that's not the way it's going down. It's-
No.
This is just
What
giving
we'll do
information
is
to
we'll
the board
take
so that they're
those
making
questions,
decisions.
the type questions from all three, put them together and try to, whatever that word is, put it all together. That'll fall under
Synthesize.
Consolidate.
Consolidate.
Synthesize.
And then, just kind of give them the lay of the land.
Right.
Because I think, for example, it popped right out of me, the 100% of folks being sort of open to that. And I thought, well, that's a surprise based on just our general, and how much really effort you put into being so careful about how you ask questions. But it's family now, that might be different someplace else, so we'll see. Any other things that you could infer from this that's more than just what you noticed?
I think it's interesting in the comments that parents are aware of teacher turnover rate, and there are some assumptions about why that is. Is that, am I inferring?
I think that's
About why the
feeling
turnover-
behind it too.
Yeah.
Like they're assuming they know why there's a turnover.
There's what?
There's a lot of connections that like maybe because there's this configuration, we have a higher teacher turnover rate.
It's attributed to the multi-classroom.
Makes sense.
And that should be looked at. Is there a correlation? Because it seems to be a pattern at this point. So what's the reasoning behind it?
And I'm just curious what
I know things I can't share.
What's that?
I know stuff I can't share.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta be careful. So okay, we need more people here. So to talk about this one, because is this that turnover causes the problems, or the problems are causing the turnover, or that they are interrelated? And, are they interrelated?
Yeah. Or their assumptions.
Assumptions being made about
About
what
teacher.
turnover
Assumptions by the
causes.
parents. Yeah.
Thank you.
But I think regardless of that, it's still, I think, concerning to families because they don't know what to expect year to year. So regardless of the reason for the turnover or not, it's unsettling.
Right, I mean, that's it. To assume that it's because there's multi-ages. I don't know, maybe you're grounded or maybe you're totally ungrounded.
Lack of housing.
Right.
If it were me, it would be, personally, I've taught multi-age for 1,000,000 years and I love
How
it.
long's the commute?
So,
Right, right.
anything else?
I'm curious about this data. I don't quite
You
know
can't,
what
there's
to
nothing.
infer from it, but I think there's probably something to infer.
No.
Whether it's about three
Just
children.
it depends on the
No.
person that filled it out.
It was poorly, yeah, the question was poorly asked, so I'd have to go into the spreadsheet and see if we can pull stuff out, but I'm
How
not
come it
sure.
wasn't done by grade level? Because it seems that people who have children that are in 4th, 5th, and 6th grades have a greater concern about the quality of their of
They
those
could select
age group.
4 through 6 as a choice.
Yeah.
I think that's why we split it into primary versus.
I'm
versus
referring what it means to have 3 kids.
By the time you get to the third, you're like,
Right, I know that.
no. I would say 4, 5, 6, yeah.
I thought it was interesting that somebody had identified a teacher in Rochester and, why were you doing this in groups? And it's like, well, we're doing it in groups for exactly that reason. You just named somebody and we're not going to have a little dumping ground here.
They used it anyway.
But that was a positive one, I think.
I just want to reiterate what we read here about people we just need to reiterate it has to stay
This
here.
is all very confidential,
Yeah.
even though it's a public meeting.
I thought we heard that there needs to be maybe a different way to communicate the way that you're instructing, so the direct instruction reading and the literacy and math, like just being more clear about what that is. Yeah. Because like PBIS, you guys are like very clear about, and that communication comes through very clearly. But the fact that like at the school board meeting, you were like, kindergarten and 3rd grade test scores are like through the roof since we've instituted this, like that impact is so significant.
Right.
And few people know about it.
Right. No.
I would infer that's possibly about parents' own baggage about standardized test scores, possibly, or test scores. I don't know. Why would
I think
why would
sometimes
that rank
it's
so low?
education speak. I think it's like edu-speak, like that doesn't, it's different.
Oh, that's
I don't know.
interesting.
That's my inference, right? Like, not always, I heard someone say this needs to be in a more family-friendly, like language.
The letters came out. I felt like that was a great way to communicate that, to put us up to national standards. I thought that was, I didn't remember seeing those last year. I think that was the first time I feel like we got those.
It's taken a while to get
I
those
thought
letters right this time.
the lack of knowledge of instrumental lessons was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Has there ever been second options at these schools?
There was.
There was.
It's funny, people say mention of guidance counselor, it's not from lack of wanting one.
Right.
Mental
It's
health
just-
and guidance, yeah.
But it's
But again,
just being able to get staff.
I think you've talked a lot about the Clara Martin relationship and how
Yeah.
that's available
Yeah.
to people. if
Did
needed.
folks talk much about mental health?
It was in there once, but guidance was in there a couple of times.
So is there an inference that people are not, because of the way the schools are performing around supporting kids socially and emotionally, that they are not concerned about, generally not concerned about student mental health?
Oh, interesting. I hadn't thought of it.
That's a rough one.
That is
Yeah. You say that too, and then no safety concerns. Like, I know no one mentioned that. From all the school
Weren't in
stuff
the
that goes
meeting in
on throughout
October.
this country. there's no concerns.
Were there
I was
opportunities?
waiting for all that to
If those were hot topics, did we give enough opportunities in the survey for folks to say that? I think we did.
Yeah, when the open-ended.
Yeah.
You can write anything you want behind a screen.
Yeah, no, that's one thing I'm really proud of, and maybe I mistakenly didn't add that in my own response, was like safety is, everybody really has to think about safety above and beyond, like they do in other schools
Yeah.
throughout the country.
The next question is about successes, right?
Yeah.
And celebration.
That is, when I write that down, that doesn't sound right.
I didn't see it, sorry, let me scroll up. Families feel
Yeah, I
their
don't
kids
mean
are
that they're
safe
not
at
concerned.
school.
They feel that safety is not the number one thought,
Yeah.
but they assume
Right.
safety is here, it's here, it's not.
Well, and I would say feel students are safe at school, both physically and emotionally. Is that fair?
I feel like people have
About the mental
about-
piece.
Yeah.
There was some mental health.
Yeah, I think it's less emotional, but definitely physical. Their physical safety is, we all feel that's true, but not.
But
maybe
based
not
on
emotionally.
on what the survey,
I feel like people were questioning.
We're questioning
Questioning
the
emotional-
emotional,
the
emotional, okay.
safety because there's no guidance counselor or mental health.
got it. Okay.
I like that the farm and forest We got 53% that people knew, and it just started, right? How did you read that?
Yeah, that's cool, I guess, yeah.
All right, what do we have to celebrate here, people?
And 53%, I think.
Based on the survey, what do we have to celebrate?
And which is interesting because if you look at 13, how there was a page 13, how there like the need or the
Grant.
grant, like utilizing grants, there was like the need for outdoor gardens came in second next to playgrounds, which is interesting, you know, with the response to the outdoor.
I think it just
Gardening.
doesn't want more of it.
Is there a community garden project in either of the towns?
Yo, that's what's going on.
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay, what do we have to celebrate based on the survey? What are people,
Not
what are
to the
you
extreme.
happy to hear? What do you want to say to the board? You're doing this right. We're doing this right.
I think the move to a portal bodes well because
Yeah, if
for
it's-
communication styles, because I feel
And that's
like-
where you're going?
Yeah.
That's where we're going, ready or not.
I would add to that to say that communication's in a positive way. I feel like majority of the data here shows that it's a positive. People are getting the communication.
Yeah.
So that was another thing I was going to check to see, is whether or not those where we had how people preferred to get their information, whether that actually aligned with the WRVSU communication plan.
It aligns with our RSUD version of the plan.
Okay.
For the most, I mean, we don't have the parent portal piece set up, that's coming next year. But like, we talk a lot about, we use Thursday folders, we use newsletter, and we use email, and those were the three biggest
Yeah.
responses on there.
All right.
And I'm
What else?
really excited to hear it's not social media.
Creating a unified school community. I mean, it's pretty spread out, but I think the graph represents that a majority are pleased or feel, you know, I think there's room for improvement, but it's page 3.
Yeah, 32% answered 9 and 10, and that's the same amount of people that answered 1 through 6.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah, there's some interesting ideas around that. A lot of them are, and not surprisingly, are getting kids together. I mean, that's really it's when the student from the other building's name ends up on the birthday list.
Yeah.
Who's Kevin?
Right?
Well, and that's a real piece of the communications plan as well, is to have this shift in how we
Yeah.
think about our schools as being
What else?
unified. I thought it was really cool how so many people were aware of so many of the school-wide initiatives. Right? It's like 76, 92, 96, 88, 92. Another communication.
Communicating school, community, upcoming events.
Yeah. And some of that, I think, in the end, when we get closer to making recommendations, is with the things that are going well, I think is really important for people to have to stop and figure out why they're going well, and to keep the practices that are working and keep that up. The schools tend to, and this has just been my own experience, that when something is going well, that they take their eye off it. Oh, that's going fine. But we don't need that anymore because it's going really well. Well, it's going really well because you made that hire, or that position is there, or those resources are there. So if you take them away, chances are that it won't go so well. So, anything else?
I think we should celebrate the fact that even though it's like not necessarily the largest turnout in response, these are like really thoughtful responses people put, and they like want their voices to be heard. So I think like even though it's not a huge audience, you do have a captive group of people who are invested and would be willing to continue the conversation. It seems like it.
Yeah.
What I thought was interesting was I felt like there was good response to people wanting to share their expertise. There were 10 yeses, but we didn't really get much of an elaboration from many on that, right?
Yeah.
So it's like we have these people out there now and they're interested. We don't know what they're interested in, and hopefully they share.
I found that there's always a lot of people out there, and what they need is they need to be asked.
Yeah.
They don't, for whatever reason, it's hard for them to pick up the phone
And say,
and
"Yeah,
offer.
yeah."
But you go ask, they may. The thoughtful, caring responses, the other piece about that I thought was really stood out to me, and it goes in, which you should be very proud of, goes with that creating a unified school community and wanting to do more, is that the comments seemed to be very sensitive. I mean, they wrote them as if somebody would be reading them from the other town almost. You know, they were sensitive to other people's thoughts. You know, when they talked about, well, that if we were going to one school, it ought to be Rochester. And they gave reasons, but it, you know, it didn't feel like an anti-Stockbridge, you know,
There was no
comment.
us versus them.
It was, I don't know, it just, the whole tone of the comments seemed to be
More constructive?
more, what's that?
More constructive?
Yeah, and I think just back to when you become a unified district, everybody's kids become everybody's kids, and sometimes that's one of the hardest hurdles. And we've had that hurdle here a little bit. So, but that's really the key, is when people aren't, you know, identifying kids by town.
Well, I think it'll be interesting to see the difference with the community survey, because I do feel that our school community is very united, and I think that it's the
Yeah.
towns that's where the tension is.
Right.
It's the taxpayers.
And
It's not the
Right.
families.
And then, so then therein, what is the challenge?
And it's not in here, but one of the concerns I've heard voiced in our community conversations from parents has been like, how do we make sure that parent voice around what the future may be is truly heard and not overridden by people who while they are taxpayers, it won't directly impact their kids. Like just wanting to make sure that their voice is being heard.
Yeah.
And there's like a concern about that. It wasn't in there, actually. I'm shocked it didn't show up there, but it's come out
Anyway,
a
that's-
couple of times.
I think we should recognize this support for capital investments. I know that it's up there, but I think
Yeah.
that's something to celebrate.
And there was quite a few comments about we love having a small elementary school
Yeah.
or a small rural school
school.
atmosphere and that sort of stuff.
It's nice. Come on, Jack. It's been raining for days.
That's another one that is an interesting thing in the smaller communities. Everybody understands what it's like when there's a hole in the roof that has to be fixed in your home, and if you don't have any money set aside. So that kind of, when a board goes forward and says, we want to set aside X amount of the leftover money, or, you know, whatever, for capital improvements, or we need to be starting to do this, they'll turn everything else down and they'll vote that in, because that's how people run their own homes. So, okay, and there was another one I missed.
What Don is it?
Loving a small group,
Oh.
small school atmosphere.
Okay.
Harking back to all those one-room schoolhouses.
Speaking of multi-ages.
Right?
And one person.
That's
We're seventh grade.
When I was first on
It was
the
a
school
turnover
board,
like
we
then.
still had Hancock as a two classroom schoolhouse, and Granville had a one classroom schoolhouse.
For how many grades?
All elementary.
Okay, so based on this survey, what are the challenges? Is
Getting a
there-
greater response
Yeah.
from the parents.
Yeah, getting more feedback.
25, to me, if anybody who has a child in the school should want to do this survey. I'm sorry. More so than people in the community. Because the people in the community, all it is a financial thing. It's
Right.
one thing.
Yeah.
Here, you're dealing with your own child, and you only get this low of a response. I personally think that's disappointing, so I think you need to increase.
But anyone who has a child in the school is probably very busy and very stretched for time.
Yeah.
Well, they got
but
2
it's so,
extra
but it's
weeks.
so
And it
important.
works.
It took 10 minutes.
You know,
In other
yeah,
words, you're
take
saying
the
that
You
so
make time
important.
for the things that are important
Right,
to you.
and children are, your children are supposed to be.
Yeah, so I mean, you
Very
have,
important.
you have to ask multiple times.
And I think emphasizing that more, that both parents can be voting, I don't know if that was, but the
Well-
fact that.
You already put it out. I mean, I think guilt's a good thing.
It was in, I saw it on the Thursday folder today.
Yeah,
But, yeah, I mean, you could even put out a message, Lindy, or Patrick could as a.
No, we have next Thursday's the musical. right?
Or, you know, something that just says that, you know, I think it's fair that we're excited with the percentage, or with the
could
response that we got it, but we're disappointed in the number of folks.
Can
We
somebody
really need
at
more
that
families
concert
to engage.
yeah.
Don't forget, both
Oh, yeah, we shuffle kids all night long.
all
There's
adults in
plenty
the
of time.
household can respond,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Please help us. do
Get
this.
up in front of the audience and say, okay.
But also, I think we're like so kind in the way that we're like, we've been tasked with this job, but if we're just like, do you care about your kids? Do the survey. Like, if you're just more direct with people about what we're expecting from them, and it's like a little bit less like politically correct or whatever, I just feel like people will do it. But I
Right.
think it's, I mean, I hate to say it, but like, that's.
Well, and then there's always the, you know, we want our voices heard. Well, this is a fabulous opportunity to have your voice out
Yeah.
there. Get it out there.
But ask them not to vote 5 times.
Okay, what
Too
other
late.
challenges? Well, I think turnover is a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it
No.
Lindy, do you know, do you have any reasons for the turnover that you're aware of? And again, I don't need you to divulge
Well,
any
so what
information.
I think
but-
it's a little, so sometimes I think it's just hard, right, to be in a rural school. I think where I first started teaching, and I taught in a really large school, and you do have just more colleagueship because there's somebody else that's right next door teaching the same thing as you, so you can talk through things. I also think education's in a really interesting place where for the first time ever, you can job shop like nobody's business. Meaning, oh, I could walk to work if I really wanted to because there's a teacher shortage. We've had some folks that are like, the commute is too much. I don't want to drive over a mountain anymore, or I don't want to, my housing is changing, so I want to work closer to that. It is,
And housing is an issue.
yeah, housing is definitely a concern, and I would say that, I think someday, when it's hard too, right, like it's not an easy job by any stretch of the imagination.
Are exit interviews part of the protocol?
Most folks give myself and Jamie a reason why, and then just write their 1 or 2 lines about
And
why.
there's also a lot of provisional
Yeah.
teachers because there is a teacher shortage.
Shortage.
So,
Some of
and
it's
if
the
you
process.
have not trained to become a teacher,
Yes,
and you just come in, it can be a little surprising.
yes.
Okay. What else are we challenged with?
I would say also like there's world language is listed in there, guidance is listed in there. Those are positions that like I don't ever anticipate being full-time. And
Guidance could be full-time.
it could, but the feedback we got in an exit interview was like, I am coming to be a school counselor, I'm not coming to be the opposite of a principal. in another building, so I don't want to do the discipline piece or the behavior piece. So, like, just any of those part-time essential positions are hard to fill or maintain, like, talking about staffing, right? Like, I also couldn't, love to say we could have a full-time world language teacher, but I couldn't create a schedule
Does
where
the
it's.
supervisory union assist you when it comes to those type of? 'Cause they can
Sometimes,
hire
like, we
a
have some-
full-timer, and
Yeah.
they just put it
Share
out
with
to
the
3
whole
different districts.
District, yeah.
Yes. Then just remember that comes with, sometimes they see over 100 kids in however many buildings. And I think it's fine until you do the travel. So it's like about making it make sense, right? Like, even the folks I share, even the folks that we share between both buildings are like, it makes more sense if we're 2 days back to back in the same building, because then it's like, I'm prepared and there's some consistency versus like for a while they were like every other day or something like that.
I can share because my daughter was the
Yeah.
world language teacher across the district, and
She was
her
what,
big, I
4
mean, it was
places?
logistically a problem.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing, she had 450 kids every week to make contact with. And that was just not sustainable.
Yeah.
You know, too many kids, she just, the challenge of remembering their names, you know? So, I mean.
Where you left off, what you, yeah,
She missed them tremendously, but
I miss her.
Anything else?
I mean, do we see shortcomings in how people feel like the curriculum is? Like that page 15, I know we're going to revisit
Yeah.
that, but we didn't get a gauge, or we can't get a gauge because of inconsistent data that tells us how people feel like their students are being taught, or the
their
outcome of their.
experience.
Yeah, the experience.
Yeah, I agree with you.
This is less of an us challenge, but definitely an employee challenge of how do you communicate the synthesis of this information to the town and the next steps for it? Like, I don't know.
Right. Getting people to the table for it.
Yeah, because I mean, especially if we're trying to solicit more buy-in, like actionable steps from this information is going to be helpful to then say, okay, next time you really can have a voice, or next time I'm not even going to bother doing it because it doesn't matter, nothing happens.
Right,
I think one person did say that.
Yeah.
right. I feel like I voiced it and
Yeah.
why do you keep asking me or something like that, yeah.
Anything else?
Student voices. Right, we don't know,
Is that
there's a
from
lot of
the
assumptions
survey, or is that
about
out?
4th, 5th, and 6th grade, for example, but we don't really know.
But based on the survey, this has to be based on what we got from the survey.
It says, is there other data we should look at, is one of the questions up there. That's why I said student
Oh, okay.
data. And at a developmentally appropriate level. When I'm in here and I see those 4th, 5th, and 6th graders together, I think that's a beautiful thing. I wonder what the experience is for kids. It would just be interesting to
Yeah.
know.
Okay.
they're often not afraid to share it.
No,
So I
Like,
started the
I'm
last
hearing some
question. We're about
answers.
10 minutes from 7. We've done really well here. So these are very preliminary because it's based on a small percentage of one survey. But I had already pulled out 2 things out that you had said, so correct me if I'm wrong. Kate, I think you said to capitalize on events that have a high turnout to communicate with families. Boards need to take note of the interest in considering reconfiguring or consolidating into one school. So they need to take that on. Again, we're not making a decision.
Yeah.
And again, it's very preliminary, but we give them the information, and then in places where we feel like we'd like to recommend, we can. We don't have to recommend everything. Keith?
Question. Would you consider giving us the community survey to take home with us, so when we have our next meeting, we can hit the ground running as opposed
I
to?
was going to do that.
Okay.
Thank you. I would just say great minds think alike. How's that? Yeah, because it's a lot. But I really wanted this first one to be together. And this, anyway. What else? Are there other recommendations?
What about exploring how to access those who would like to share their personal expertise?
I thought, oh. I think it's what I said before, but I don't know if you want this in there in terms of analyzing what you're doing right,
Say that
so that you
again.
can keep doing it.
Oh, analyze what we're doing, right?
Patrick?
Desire for capital improvements and creative use of grant funding.
I do feel like the board should also acknowledge that you've collected this information and give people, like, we're collecting this information, we're gonna have a presentation on this at the beginning of the school year. Like, I think just saying that to people and just like communicating that, like,
This is the next step.
this is the next step, yeah.
Yeah.
Does 32%
Say
seem
that
like
again, Katie, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it was
a
good.
number that
Next steps. Board needs to communicate next steps to people so that they know what's happening and where the information's going.
I think Jamie has their attention. Like, I feel like Jamie's doing a good job at like coming to that coffee and breakfast, speaking to us as parents,
Yeah.
sending the letters.
That's a good number.
Like this would be a good like tipping off point to Katie's point. Like communicate it.
Anything else? This can always be added to.
Put a
We'll look at
timeline
them.
to it.
Yeah.
I think
We'll
there's
look
gotta
at
have a
Action
timeline.
items, yeah.
Was that?
Timeline.
Like a recommendation to the board is we've gotta have a timeline for what next steps you're gonna take.
But also just like clear communication, just be like, you know, we saw a lot of information here about like consolidation or, you know, but
Right.
that's information for us to use. We're not gonna be making a decision on that in a year. Or like this calendar year is not gonna have impact on the kids. Just so people know, just so
Right.
people have like some idea.
Right, because you,
Desire for second language and other things like that might be difficult now, but is something like that more achievable with a reconfiguration or consolidation?
And those are the points, see, that's the point you need to make to get people to understand, well, yes, it is better if we consolidate or we reconfigure.
Yeah, these are the
Because here are
resources
the
that are added.
advantages.
Yeah.
But I think it's two different things. Like Kate's saying, you have to say, we're not, and maybe they are, I don't want to speak for the board, right? We're not going to change something for 26, 27,
Yeah.
right? We're going to
Oh,
take
yeah.
this year to go
Yeah.
into the community and analyze this question further and get more information. Where we're going
But
to-
also like, we're gonna take this information and like fine tune a decision making, so pay attention so that you can weigh in.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Right.
you know, there's gonna be another decision coming down the line in
Next
6
year.
months, or
Right.
whatever it is.
Right.
Because
Just to be
the
honest.
state's going to change their direction next year once again. I mean, they were able to buy down taxes to keep people appeased.
Right.
They kicked the
But
can
are they going to be able to do it next year?
once again.
well, we're going, I mean, we have a retreat coming up, which,
Right.
in which we will review the,
Right, that's
all the
fall.
feedback.
In the
Share it
fall.
In December,
December,
or
it's in the
Yes.
September.
That's correct. And this
You
is,
say retreat.
and then we have,
It's like this.
and then we go, you know, those are where we set goals.
Take your,
And then we go into the budget building process. And I mean, any changes that you're going to implement are going to have financial
And I
impacts.
think we're a proactive board to begin with
Absolutely.
and not reactive. And I think this, just us wanting to do this, I think signifies that.
As long as you follow up, yes.
right, it's a follow-up.
It's a follow-up.
Correct.
You know, if you don't do the last 10%, you know what they said.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and we may find some low-hanging fruit, too.
Does the percentage of 32% of people not feeling informed about the school budget and other school items warrant a recommendation?
I didn't
I
think
think
so.
so.
That was a good number, 60% actually understand.
I mean,
I think considering this is a family survey and there were not, I was gonna say, the number of families that were there that did not also work for the school system at the budget vote, there were only 6 families there. So like, I do think that 32, like, that's concerning to me.
Well, no, that is.
Not that didn't also work at the school.
Right, so there weren't any Rochester parents,
Yeah.
Except
except for the people who work
worked at the school.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that budget piece.
So you discount that whole thing because it's not valid.
It was mostly community members,
Yeah.
mostly community members.
Yeah, but you have to discount that because if they all work for the school district, it's,
No, most of them are community members.
Not-
Don't have any affiliation with the school other than tax dollars.
oh, I thought she was just saying.
No, I'm just saying
Talking
that
about the-
that's
in the
why.
family survey,
That's why
you
that
were saying this
32%
percentage
is
is high.
concerning to me, when only not even 15 family, like, parents show up to vote on the budget.
Yeah,
That's concerning to me.
yeah.
That's why 32. Normally, I would be like, yes, you're right, 60 whatever percent is a great number that
So
are
you're saying
informed.
discount that number.
Because they technically didn't vote.
Well, I mean,
They didn't
that's
come
what
to
I'm
vote.
saying. So that
Yeah.
They
question.
maybe read the book, but they didn't come in and actually.
Right, or vice, yeah, whatever.
Be
that question
proponents of
has
the
no
budget.
weight, right?
Yeah.
So that question has no weight.
Yeah,
So
Well,
I'm
very
looking-
often, I mean, it was a very quiet meeting.
it was very.
Right.
Well,
And that's,
people don't have a problem.
if people don't have a problem, I mean, that's my experience in 40 years on school boards, that when they're quiet, you're doing something good.
How do you?
That doesn't mean your work is done.
How do you count the no-shows though, with that philosophy?
3 years.
All right, I'm looking at the clock. I just
Okay.
I need people to look at their calendars in terms of taking the 12th, just penciling in the 12th and the 26th of June, which just continues our pattern
Oh, the
of
12th,
every
I'm
other
out.
Thursday.
I'm out.
The 12th is something that going on.
Yeah.
Can't do.
Our work gets crazy.
Okay.
I could do the 12th, but not the 26th.
I could do the 26th.
How many
but
people
not
would
the
we
12th.
have here on the 12th?
I can do either.
I think I can be here.
I gotta play that.
Well, yeah,
An
because
event.
I won't bring a kid.
You can.
This reminds me when I used to bring Christine in a little basket to the school board meetings.
I can't tell you how many times I got dragged.
Pardon me?
I got dragged all over the place. That's a good. Didn't teach me anything because I'm still working.
so in your mind, the next week was going to be the last meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
Same.
Okay, that's what I'm worried about. Okay. All right, so yes, I think you need to take the community survey home with you and give it a good read with the ideas of what,
I got the
Yeah.
you need.
you know where I'm going with it. And
Lindy, when will you have the response to the faculty survey?
So most faculty will do it on Tuesday because they'll be at our faculty meeting. So I would imagine stuff will start to populate after Tuesday, and then I'll do a follow-up Friday during our in-service, just to make
So
sure.
then you can send out the results of that survey before our
Right.
next meeting
yeah,
as
all
well.
of
Yeah.
that, if you're having trouble
I
getting
can-
in, it's
I
all
can
in
make
the
it like
drive.
this
and
for
it-
everybody.
And it all
Yeah, yeah,
You do the same thing, so we have both. Try to consolidate.
is automatic.
We plan on sharing the school family survey again at the event.
Yeah, I think so. I sent it out again tonight, or well, today and tonight, just because it was Thursday. But yeah, I think we put that and the community survey out next Thursday.
But how do you think we
To show
should,
the
do you think we should hand out the postcard? We have more of them?
I have a bunch of postcards, yeah.
So maybe we hand them out at the door and then maybe you make an announcement?
Sure, yeah.
It's standing room
I feel
only.
like just that alone will get us at least another 25.
I agree,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
worth saying something.
Yeah,
I feel, especially like in person, it's like,
don't forget.
Well,
Yeah.
bring your calendars
Fill out the
next
survey,
time, because we're
yeah.
gonna, by putting them out, we're making more, it's
Sorry,
just
this
pushing
is like-
things down, which is not a bad thing. We just have to
Yeah.
figure that out.
I'd rather push it down the road and have more.
No,
involved.
that's fine. And I just need to let Jamie know. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
figure this out. And I don't want to lose, there's some really good voices here that I don't want to lose either. So we'll figure out a way to fold you in without you having to be here. way, okay? We good?
Yeah.
Good work. All right, call it a night. Thank you.
Turn this off.